Stephen A. Smith. Come on, man. Go Sports presents On the Daily. How you doing, everybody? Cole Johnson's on the mic on the Daily Zone Tab, presented by Cole Sports. Welcome back to the channel. And if you haven't already, like this video, comment below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You want to know when the next episode of On the Daily or Cole Sports or any other video happens to premiere. And this shirt I'm wearing, description box below. That's all it needs. The description box below, you can get it. Now, let's get right to it. Forget warming up. Let's go to the main event because this really has me hot. I mean, it does have me hot. So last week, toward the weekend, Steve Nash, the former Mavs and Suns and other teams, most prominently the Suns and Mavs point guard, and later on consultant for the Lakers and Warriors, now is the head coach of the New Jersey, Brooklyn Nets. I keep forgetting they moved across the East River, Hudson River, well, and the East. So I heard what Stephen A. Smith had to say, and he basically claimed white privilege. Oh my goodness. Stephen A. Smith, you, sir, are this week's edition of Tone Deaf. All right, man. Look, I know. I feel your pain, man. I do. But get this. Stephen A. Smith. So he said the hiring of the new head coach, Steve Nash, was an example of white privilege. And he heard backlash from it. And then the very next day, he doubled down on that and said that he didn't care what people thought. He said he really could give a crap. And he said something else, actually. He really could give a crap what people thought and that they could, quote, kick rocks, close quote. Well, it's time for me to kick that rock because Stephen A. Smith, you are wrong. And I'm glad to say that you are wrong. Why? Because you're talking about a guy who has been in the NBA, whether as a player or as a consultant, maybe not as an assistant head coach, but he's been around the game for at least 25 years. So you're talking about a guy who knows the sport. You're talking about a guy who has the respect of so many people, my generation, the generation after us, and the generation that's playing now. You don't believe me? I'll talk about what I believe about that later. But he was a consultant with the Lakers and the Warriors, and a lot of people, I really believe, hopped on the Nash bandwagon because, well, people wanted to be associated with a champion. And so when you rub shoulders with champions, the residue everybody wants. So since he was part of the Warriors dynastic run, even though it was latter part of the last part of the dynastic run, well, teams are going to want that, especially a team that is clamoring for a championship like the Nets, and they're going for every single opportunity to get one. So they want to have a little bit of the Warriors influence. They already have one person in their fold. Now they have a second. So, all right, bro. So we get Stephen A. and he lists other qualified candidates that got passed over. Candidates like Sam Cassell. Now, he's been an assistant head coach in many different places, and he's prominently an assistant head coach under the Doc Rivers teams that has been around in the coaching staffs he's been around. And I have an affinity for Sam Cassell because I'm a Rockets fan, and his first 2 years brought the Rockets and the city of Houston 2 championships. So this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows basketball. There's no doubting, no debating, no questioning that. Then there's Ty Lue, another player turned coach, and he even had a head coaching stint during LeBron's second tour of duty in Cleveland. It got to be such a pressure cooker that Mr. Lue left during the middle of the regular season. Left. I mean, gone in the middle of the regular season. Only to return when everything was good, kosher, and the Cavaliers were playoff bound. I'm like, good Lord, what a front runner. I digress. He mentioned Pat McAdoo, which McAdoo, I don't know if he's really been clamoring for a head coaching position, but he has been a long-term assistant, also another player turned assistant head coach. And most of his most of his assistant coaching has been taking place under Pat Riley regimes, whether with the Knicks, maybe even the Lakers, when we didn't know, but definitely with the Knicks and with the Heat. Even when Riley is now in the front office and Spoelstra is the head coach. Stephen A's stance, though, get this. So his stance was that Nash got the job because of his skin color, while other black assistant coaches who have been one for a long time still haven't gotten an opportunity. No resume, Smith said, and Nash got the position. No resume, and Nash got the job. Okay. Let me run down a list of those who sight unseen, resume unseen, or even resume not worked on, got a head coaching position. Avery Johnson. Now, if he had an assistant head coaching stint before he became a head coach, it was probably under the Greg Popovich regime, but it was barely after he retired. But he had no resume whatsoever. And guess what team put him on their bench? You guessed it. The Nets. Let me think of another one. Oh, yes. Jason Kidd. Yeah, you remember him, man. Yeah. The high top sneakers were barely off his feet long enough for him to tote the clipboard and draw plays for his players. And he's had 2 stints, one with the Bucks, and guess where his first stint was? Yes. The Nets. I mean, sometimes this feigned anger is absolutely hilarious when people tout resumes of their own and Google ain't their friend. I'm sorry, I digress. And you have others who received head coaching jobs without coaching resumes and were black. I mean, I mentioned 2 already. There's another one. His name, Glenn Rivers, but we know him as Doc. I mean, he was a former Hawk, former Knicks player, right? And he toiled in media, basically. And from media, he got a head coaching position. That sounds familiar. Oh, yeah, that same thing happened with Mark Jackson. Yeah, people were so enamored with how he was and how he now is still being a color analyst for NBA games. The Warriors snatched him from the booth to be on their sideline. Sight unseen, resume not worked on, and black. And then there's Derek Fisher. The player turned head coach, did not have an assistant coach stint whatsoever. And he had to have the residue of the Knicks. The Knicks took out a flyer on him, and he could not save that modern day Titanic himself. But what unfortunately happened was that he became a modern day Titanic himself in his own personal life. But I digress. I'm not talking about Fisher. Oh, how about another one? A Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players of all time, one of the greatest point guards of all time. Yes, Zeke, Isaiah Thomas. Now, before he was a Knick executive, he was the head coach of the Indiana Pacers. What assistant head coach job did Thomas hold? Yes, none. Oh my gosh. Look, what I find funny about all this is that Smith moved the goalposts and said that no black man would be put on a team who had this much potential for a championship run with no resume. But I can't believe that he's moving the goalposts. But there's a saying. And the saying goes like this: when a false claim of racism abounds, it makes things more difficult for when it actually does happen. Steve Nash is not even a naturalized American. Now, he claims to be Canadian, but he was born in South Africa. Now, as racist as he could have been, being born in Johannesburg, there isn't one racist bone in his body. In fact, he got the job because he bonded well, like I said before, with Kevin Durant when he was on the Warriors and Nash was with the Warriors. They bonded. So did it ever occur to you, Mr. Smith, that Durant probably said to Nets management, say, man, you're asking me who I want on the bench? How about Steve Nash? Give him a chance, because I think he actually is a good guy. You don't think that happened, right? You just think that, oh, the skin's white, we'll just grab him. Stephen A., you are a grown man crying wolf here. And I'm glad you're passionate in your belief. I'm glad you are so dogmatic in your opinion. However, before you tout how long you've covered the NBA or have been a journalist, why don't you take the time to just look at the situation for what it is? Huh? You're levying a charge that the Nets are racist. Yet I already highlighted that they put out flyers for 2 head coaches that did not have coaching experience before that were black. And it's the same organization you're levying a white privilege charge against. Listen, man, fight the right fight, sir. Fight the right fight. And not the one you feel the need to just simply construct and have it appear out of thin air. You're gonna see that you are going to be looked upon in a way that I don't think you'd like. You're going to be looked upon as someone who grandstands, someone who loves the spotlight, someone who loves to have the mic shoved in his mouth, and someone who just loves to speak because he has a forum. Well, guess what? Use the forum responsibly, sir. You right now, sir, are not. That's why you are tone deaf. Now, if you are wanting to come back to this channel, I believe you do, hit that like button. Come on, I want to hear what you have to say. Comment below. What do you think about Stephen A. Smith? And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I want to bring more of this to you, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to do so. I'm Cole Johnson, and this has been yet another installment of Cole Sports on the visual and on the daily.